Discover prototypical track and turnouts with the Roadmaster series from Oak Hill Model Railroad Track Supply. Proudly made in the United States, Oak Hill's handcrafted turnouts provide unparalleled detail and accuracy, giving your layout museum-quality track work at an affordable price. Whether fully built or in easy-to-assemble kit form, Roadmaster provides all the details of real track. Looking for a custom piece of track work? Oak Hill can help with custom turnouts, diamonds, crossings, and more. Check out all of their offerings on their website, ohrtracksupply.com. For over 25 years, Highball Graphics has been providing high-quality decals for railroads in New England, Canada, and beyond. With over 2,000 sets in scales N through G, Highball Graphics has you and your project covered. Highball Graphics specializes in custom decal orders, serving freelance railroads worldwide. Check out their easy-to-use website at highballgraphics.com or email them at info@highballgraphics.com. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Around the Layout, where model railroaders come to tell their story. My name is Ray Arnott, so glad you could join us. It's time to talk about the Central Georgia RPM, and joining me to do that, Paul Spilman and Stephen Floyd. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, Ray.
Well, great to have you here. This is a RPM that's, I'll be honest, new to me, so I'll be learning as we go and finding out what you guys have going on down in Georgia with an RPM. I enjoy the RPM concept, and I think a lot of people do as well, for the advantages it gives model railroaders to be able to come together and be able to share a whole bunch of information, and just excited to learn about what you got going down in the South there. So why don't you guys give us a little bit of history about the Central Georgia RPM and how this all got started?
It got started in 1999 by a gentleman named Bob Harp. He was a fantastic modeler, and he hosted the event down in the Savannah area for years. In 2019, he got to having some health problems, and there were three of us. I started attending in 2014. I think Paul had been going. When did you start, Paul? In the 2010,
maybe 2007, something like that,
somewhere. And another gentleman, Ken Preston, who was one of the first attendees there. So the three of us, Bob was getting ready to sort of do something with the RPM, not having the heart to do it. And Ken had always helped out with, and Paul as well, with setup and everything. And we asked if we could take up, just help him out and him just be the patriarch and us do all the legwork and do everything. And it was going well. Then year before last, 23, it had gotten so expensive in Savannah, hotel prices, that we asked if we could move it to Macon, Georgia. Ken and I are from Macon. We live in Macon, and the hotel prices are much more affordable. We're closer to Atlanta, so we know we can get a larger crowd. It is a 2-day event. So the three of us have taken over hosting that. Unfortunately, last year, right around the time of the RPM, Mr. Hart passed away. So we owe it to him. We do memorialize him, and that's where we are today.
Yeah, I see that on your website. You've got a wonderful memoriam to him on there, and sharing a little bit about him and getting the RPM started. How did you guys all get to meet? Was it around the RPM, or had you known each other prior to that?
I met Ken first through the Central of Georgia Model Railroad Club, which has been disbanded for years after we lost our home. And I think Stephen either found us or we found him somehow around 2012 or so, and we just started, going to the same events, and we just formed the, as Bob liked to call it, the Macon crew, or the gang, I think he actually called us. And we just kind of, we were all living in Macon at the time. I moved away in 2017, and that's what we were, was the Macon crowd coming down to Savannah.
Now, prior to this and prior to starting this, were there any other RPMs? What kind of kicked this whole idea off even from the beginning? Was there an attendance of another that really inspired it? How did that all come forward?
Well, Mr. Harp was one of the pioneers in the RPM. In 99, there weren't a lot of RPMs around the country, and he was one of the pioneers of the RPM. He's a model builder. He had a network of model builders, and that's what he drew from, is from his network all over the country. And that's sort of what built it and got us involved with it. And once I attended my first one, I've attended a lot more since then. So around the country.
It hooks you in.
Yeah, it certainly does. And the atmosphere and camaraderie, it seems to be that. So I'm checking out here on the website. Bob has quite a legacy, as you had mentioned, in starting the Central Georgia RPM. It must feel, to be in a unique position to be able to carry that legacy on with the two of you. Talk about your roles within this, and how you guys work together to keep this event going.
And just coordinators, I guess you would say. RPM is an event for modelers, and Bob started it, and it was the Savannah RPM. When he started it, we changed the name to Central Georgia RPM when we moved it to Macon. And my role, I do some of the logistics here as far as the venue, setting up the venue, making those arrangements. Paul handles most of our network stuff, our online presence. Ken, he handles the email and information and clinics. So we each have our own part, because this is a part-time job.
Yeah, for sure. I bet it's, there's probably quite a bit to it. And I'm sure it's not just for a few months a year. I'm sure you're thinking about this RPM for quite a few months going in, at least.
Oh yeah, we're already thinking 26 now. I mean, it takes a lot of effort to pull one of these things off, and we're really growing. Last year we were pleasantly surprised at the number of attendees last year, and for it to be the first year in Macon. And this year we would love to double it, but we'll get close to it, I think. So.
What would you attribute that growth to?
Well, first of all, we are a model-driven RPM. Last year we had 75 attendees that we know passed through the door. We may have missed a few here and there, but we had 425 models on display.
Wow.
So a lot of great talent in the area. And plus, moving it 2.5 hours closer to Atlanta, which in the state of Georgia, 75% of your population lives within a 60-mile radius of Atlanta. So that puts us a 2-hour drive from the northernmost part of Atlanta away. It makes it very accessible. And there are a lot of modelers in that area that support us, as well as other states. We'll have North Carolina. We have a good contingency from North Carolina, Kentucky, a couple of guys from Pennsylvania come down, Ohio. We've got a guy. I heard today we've got couple coming out of New York this time. So Florida, Alabama, and we're closer to Birmingham as well. So that puts us in a good position too. So we're bringing some modelers out of Birmingham, because, that's a 6-7 hour drive for them to Savannah. This really cut that down.
Yeah, definitely. Centralizing the location definitely does that. And of course, Atlanta being a big travel hub also makes it a lot easier for folks to get to.
We're an hour and a half from the airport there in Atlanta. So it's on the south side of town. We're south of Atlanta. Hop on I-75 and head straight down. It's literally 72 miles.
Well, it sounds like it made it a lot more convenient to visit. And as you mentioned before, a little more affordable too than that hot spot of tourism of Savannah.
That is true. And where we're located on the north side of Macon, we have a lot of hotels that are competitively priced. And you have your Hiltons, your Hamptons, your Holiday Inn Expresses, Courtyards. You have all those hotels there, as well as restaurants. We have tremendous amount of restaurants that are in that area that people can choose to dine out with.
Well, it's excellent. You cover all of that on your website. That is centralgarpm.com. And of course, we'll share all the links on our website as well, aroundthelayout.com/148. Now, you talked about restaurants and everything else. Paul, what else could somebody be doing if they travel to the Central Georgia RPM to kind of fill their time outside of the RPM events?
Well, we're going to have a rail fanning guide available at the registration desk that highlights the numerous opportunities around the Macon area to go rail fanning. Norfolk Southern has one of their larger hump yards there, Brosnan Yard, and there are 5 lines radiating out of Macon, and then the Georgia Central short line has their western terminus there in Macon as well. So that lots of opportunities to watch trains, and doesn't take much of a drive to get to most of them. So that'll be a big draw. And Stephen's got a couple of layout tours lined up that I'll let him speak about.
Yeah, let's definitely hear about that, because we love to be able to go to layouts and check out what people are doing.
Yeah, we have We actually have one that's an operating evening with Jack Copeland is his name. It's an N-scale Southern Railway circa 1950 N-scale steam. Operates on timetable and train order. Fantastic. We have a monthly operating session there. So Jack's is going to be available. Also, Gerald Conley, he is an artist in himself. He was a graphic artist for his career. So his layout is going to be just a running layout. He's not going to hold operations, although we've done them there before. But he just wants people to come and visit. He said he'd have some coffee and water and snacks set up for people just to come through. And it's a building that's attached to his house. It's on the far side of his garage that houses that layout. And it is incredibly well done and finished too. I would say that that's one of those 99% finished layouts.
Never quite 100%, 99%, right? I think that's the maximum. There's always something to play around or change or make just a little bit better or different. That's for sure.
Yeah, that is correct. And unfortunately, mine will not be available this year. We've had a health issue in the house and we can't let anyone in. But that will be back on schedule next year. So.
Well, excellent. Yeah, hopefully everybody's in better health and that's fantastic. And being able to go around, see other layouts, especially for those that travel, to be able to see different modeling. And I can only just imagine. I mean, I'm a northerner here, but certainly a big fan of the old Southern and the tuxedo schemes and everything else. I'm sure we'd see plenty of that when we go to the Central Georgia RPM, wouldn't we?
Yeah, definitely. We have a large number of Southeastern modelers for sure, but don't expect it to be, exclusive. We've got guys that model just about everything you can think of. And I hear rumors that we're going to have a narrow gauger in attendance that models the White Pass and Yukon. So that, that'll be a refreshing change of pace if he does make it. And so we've got everything from Union Pacific to small short lines. Freelance railroads are welcome. Just because it's not a prototype doesn't mean that it can't be displayed at an RPM. And, scales from N to O. I mean, I think we've seen pretty much everything as far as variety there. So lots of opportunities to see basically every railroad you can think of.
Well, excellent. Little variety, a little bit of local flavor as well. So it'd be definitely neat to see. So talk about displaying models at this RPM and maybe a little bit more about this new space that you have, because I was checking out the pictures you're sharing on your website, again, centralgarpm.com. And it looks like a really nice venue you've got going for 2025.
We do. We were very fortunate to get a slot at this venue. It's a local church, but they have a gymnasium that we're going to set up models in to view as well as vendors. We've got about 7,000 square feet in the gymnasium itself. We also have a separate room for the clinics, and that will be in their youth ministry room. It's set up with AV, overhead projector with drop-down screen, a raised platform for the presenters to stand on, and padded chairs for the guest.
Nice. Padded chair is a very good thing.
Padded chair is that's a bonus.
Yes. Very good. So good AV. And like you said, you'd be able to do these. And it looks like a big room. You can fit quite a few people in for these clinics.
We can fit a lot of people in that room. So I think it's designed for about 150 attendees in the clinic room itself. So the gym, it's good for 300 or 400 people, but we don't know that we'll reach that point.
Well, it sounds like you've got a lot of room for expansion too, and it seems like it's a growing thing. So that's definitely good to have as a venue that you can grow with over the next several years.
Yeah, and we have a great relationship with them. So I think we have that venue as long as we want it on the last weekend of March, as long as it's not the weekend of Easter.
Excellent. Yeah, that's definitely good to be able to have a reliable location that you can go back to year after year and grow it.
Yeah.
Let's talk more about clinics, because being able to go to an RPM and learn from these amazing folks that attend is certainly one of the values of going to a railroad prototype modelers meet. Talk about the clinics and what's got you guys excited for the clinic offerings.
We don't run multiple clinics at a time like a lot of the RPMs do. Our goal is to focus on the models, but we also know that a lot of people want to, learn while they're there from a clinician. So we've got 4 during the day, each day, and then 1 evening clinic lined up for Friday night. and a wide variety of topics covered by a good assortment of presenters. The Friday night one is generally, I don't want to call it a keynote, but it's one of the probably the more likely to be attended ones. And this year we've got the president of the Southern Railway Historical Association lined up to talk about the local yard there in Macon, Brosnan Yard. And then we've got four each day during the day that ranging from how to assemble a resin kit to modeling a specific prototype. Your typical RPM clinic fare. We try to prioritize keeping people coming into the model room and not having them pick between 400 different clinics to attend and which order they got to go in.
Well, that's certainly appreciated. I know I've gone to events where there's a few clinics, and it's so nice that you don't have to feel like you're missing something to attend the other, that you have a choice and you can prioritize what you want to do with your clinics without, again, eliminating one. And that's certainly great. And some very familiar names on this, on the presenter list.
Yeah, we've got some quality modelers out there from Benton Wells, and a unique one that we are adding this year is Bruce Arbo, and he is on the council for the National T-Track layout for the 2026 NMRA convention, where they're going to try to break the world record. And the group that I'm a part of, as well as Bruce and several of our guys, and the GSNF T-Track, we will be at the RPM this year and have a 30-foot by 30-foot setup of our T-Track modules. And Bruce is going to give a talk on T-Track and how it plays in and how it can span different scales. So that's going to be interesting. Rusty Evans is going to be there. Tony Sissons, if you follow Prototype Authenticity, Tony Sisson is just an incredible modeler. Chris Deals is an expert on the Georgia and Florida Railroad. You've got Bruce Copeland, who is a professional. He is a professional model builder by trade. So he's going to be talking about tools to use. Jason Cripps, he's an advanced DCC installer. Andre Von Voren, he is scratch fitting with styrene. Some of the models he has built are just unbelievable. If you've been at the St. Louis RPM, you have probably seen the big river barge there. That's Andre's. So he, like you said, a great slate of presenters for the program.
Yeah, it's excellent. Some names, like I said, I recognize. I spent some time with Tony Sissons when I was at the St. Louis RPM, and you are absolutely right, an amazing modeler. And then names I've recognized, haven't met yet, but Jason Cripps of Georgia Bigfoot Trains. And I know he does a lot of work for the Seaboard Central and Tim Garland. So yeah, definitely. Those are kinds of the neat things when his clinic there, advanced decoder and LED installation, where you can watch videos, but to be able to see it firsthand, to be able to lay your hands and your eyes upon it in person and then be able to ask specific questions. That's just a really unique opportunity to learn and make yourself a better modeler.
That's true. And Jason will actually have a table set up out in the main room so that you've got 2 days of access to him. And he would love for you to come and sit in front of him and say, how do I do this? Because he is a teacher. And those are the things you get in RPM you do not get at the standard train show.
Yeah, I think that's really what I enjoy about an RPM, and I'm certain that it bleeds through in yours as well, is the sense of teaching, the heart of the teacher that bleeds through with a lot of modelers, that they truly enjoy sharing what they've learned with others. And this is an awesome forum to be able to do it.
Most RPM attenders they're not contest people. They just enjoy doing and showing and teaching. And that's one of the things that Mr. Harp preached to us, is that I want chairs at the tables around where the models are so that we can sit there and talk to people. And he led by example. He would sit there all day and just talk about how he built an SD40-2 or how he decaled. And you get that from all of the modelers. And also, I'll throw this in. Although we have a lot of prototype models there, last year we saw a lot of guys show up with their own lines, their proto-freelance or their freelance railroads. And they had some incredible models. And those guys will be back. There's a couple from the Alabama area that do some fantastic modeling. It almost looks real. So you would believe it's a real railroad, the way they do it.
Yeah, that's awesome. The freelance and how far freelancing has gone, tying it in and not being so specific with your rules that it can't include those people is really awesome, because ultimately it boils down to the same type of modeling, and whether the story is being taken from a prototype or from their mind, there's still a lot of those kinds of detail things that they're drilling towards that really make it all come together.
And in some ways, I think they have a harder time because they have to create their own story that's convincing, whereas a typical prototype modeler is using a photo. They don't have to get creative, they just have to copy. But these freelance guys, I mean, they blow me away with some of their work that is, you truly believe that that is a legitimate railroad company somewhere in the world. And just the storytelling that a lot of these guys have created behind the scenes, or for the history, is amazing. And just the ability to standardize like a real railroad would do, like, or to justify the reasonings for their fleets is awesome.
Yeah, definitely. I always thought it would be easier to do a freelance, but after talking to several of them, I don't think that's the case. It is a challenge. Like you said, you got to have a plausible story to tell. And it's amazing to hear them, how they've built these plausible stories within their freelance railroads. So why don't you guys tell me a little bit about yourselves and your modeling? We'll start with Paul. Talk a little bit about your modeling.
Well, I just recently moved, so my modeling is on a medium-term pause while I am renting a house that has no room at all for any kind of model building or layout activity. But I intend to resume modeling the Southern Railway's Murphy branch. My focus with the Asheville yard and the Saluda grade included in that, in what I call the Southern Railway Carolina division. So I modeled the late 70s, the heyday of the Western North Carolina railroading, a lot of timber products, wood chips, pulpwood, lumber, furniture, stuff like that, and just some absolutely amazing scenery.
So without a layout currently, and in between trying to make the Central Georgia RPM go, you find yourself some time to maybe do some detail work or kind of some bench work that you can do in the interim?
Probably not anything layout based, but my new role is an office job, which I had been a remote worker before that. So I now have a nice office and a 1 hour lunch break that's required. So I've got me a little tackle box and my hobby shop's worth of resin kits that I'm going to start trying to assemble as best I can in the office, and hope everybody doesn't start screaming about what's that smell with that glue or something like that. But I figure if I'm able to at least get a few kits built, maybe not painted, that wouldn't go over well in an office trying to airbrush something. But if I can get some, assembly done and, kind of keep going with something, I'll consider it a success.
Excellent. Good stuff. And Stephen, you mentioned you got a layout that's not available this year, but I can, for those that can't see it, because this is an audio podcast, but I can see you're sitting right in the middle of it. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you model?
I am. I also model the Southern Railway, early 1980s. It can bleed past the end of the Southern era into Norfolk Southern a little bit, but it'll still be Southern Power. It is a branch line in East Georgia. It's called the Sylvania branch, and I actually model the town of Sylvania. My staging is the 17 miles from the junction into the town, but I actually model the town of Sylvania. It is in a 16 and a half by 26 room. I have 9 turnouts on the layout. So it's been a fun model. It's a great operation. I can spend a couple hours doing an operating session. It's been one that I have thoroughly enjoyed.
Now, do you operate it yourself? Do you have other folks coming over and operating it as well? How do you do that?
Well, it's really a one-man crew. So, or one crew railroad. It's one train in, one train in and out for the day. So a 2-man crew can operate it. A lot of times I operate it by myself. I'll come up and I'll switch out a few cars just to have something to do. But I do have people over to operate. We use authentic Southern Railway switch list for it that are hand filled out with a pencil. And you never have over 9 cars when you come in. But like I said, you can spend 2 to 3 hours doing that. It can go either way, which I think build a railroad first for yourself. You don't build it for a bunch of people to come over. I don't. And I wanted one that I could have plenty of room in, because with this one, I have aisle space that's almost 5 feet on each side of the railroad and one peninsula down the middle. that it's more of a G-shaped railroad. And if people want to know about it, there's a Facebook page called the Sylvania Branch.
All right. Well, we'll definitely get that link up and we'll share it on our website, aroundthelayout.com/148. And yeah, that's great. You've got a layout that does the kind of the best of both worlds. Sounds like what my good friend Joe Mame would call an instant on layout, where you can just go down, switch it yourself, and be able to enjoy it. But you can also share it with friends as well. So you kind of both the best of both worlds going with that, and that's fantastic. And hopefully you find some time for modeling in between your responsibilities with this RPM that you guys are seemingly growing fast down there in Central Georgia.
I do, and that's my release, is to get into the train room and let what little artistic ability I have run free. I've got a couple of models I'm working on for the RPM this year, and a scale that I have just started tinkering with, and that's S scale. So those should be done and be a lot of fun to display them. We have one guy that's been coming for years that's an S scaler. He finally lured me into looking at some of those.
So I know a few of those S-scalers that can be, they don't want to stand alone. So they're out to recruit, I think, is what the S-scalers are doing. But it is an amazing scale, and they certainly have us beat when it comes to the vehicles. So so they got the world in the graphs when it comes to the vehicles. But excellent. So you're trying with a different scale, plus you have your current layout.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool stuff you got going on there.
Thank you.
So let's talk about attending the Central Georgia RPM and what one would need to do. Let's start with, when we mentioned travel, the Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport's pretty close there. Talk about how easy it is to get to the Central Georgia RPM.
Like I said, if you fly into Hartsville, it is 72 miles south on I-75, straight out of Atlanta, right by you're going to probably fly in over the 75 to land there in Atlanta if you're landing to the west. And if you're traveling, we have I-85 that runs into Georgia, I-75 runs in. You've got I-20 that crosses Georgia, I-16 that comes up from the southeast. So a lot of interstates. Macon, Georgia is literally the center, in the very center of the state of Georgia. It is the geographical center of Georgia. So you've got a way in there. No way to, no trains unless you come into Atlanta. You can, or Savannah. You could take a train into Savannah if you wanted to. But travel is very easy. It's not a huge town. The area we're in is not. It's populated, but it's not busy. I will say that it's not. You don't have a rush hour is 15 minutes long.
Excellent. And Paul, you had mentioned earlier about the website, and if folks are looking for a place to stay, you got the list of hotels. What else should we know about the website, centralgarpm.com?
So you can go on the website, get address, directions, all that good stuff about where we're at. Clinic list will be updated there. If we have to make any more changes, as well as any announcements will be posted there. But one of the biggest things on the website, you can sign up for our email list down towards the bottom of the homepage, where you'll be the first to know about any changes or updates as we get closer to the event. And you can also access our Facebook page right there on the homepage as well with a nice little link.
Excellent. So all the information you need to attend the Central Georgia RPM, again, the dates March 28th through 29th. That is a Friday and Saturday at the Lundy Chapel Church in Macon, Georgia. Again, centralgeorgiarpm.com. If you missed that or any other links, you can go right to our website, aroundthelayout.com/148. We'll get you everything you need to know. So Stephen and Paul, thank you so much for coming on Around the Layout, telling us about the Central Georgia RPM. Here's to having an awesome RPM down in Georgia.
Thank you, Ray. You'll have to join us sometime.
Come on down.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Around the Layout. Learn more about today's episode, check out past shows, and much more on our website, aroundthelayout.com. Show your support by becoming an operating crew member at aroundthelayout.com/crew. Follow us on social media, aroundthelayout.com/social. And send us your feedback, aroundthelayout@gmail.com. Thanks for hanging out with us around the layout.